me.
Phillies Power 99, Rise and Grind Morning Show. Roxy Romeo, Mother Nose, and Mikey Dread. 8:03 right now, 33 degrees is the high on this Friday. And we have an amazing guest here. She walked in the studio and just energized everything in here. Like a Duracell, like an energizer battery. Yeah. We have Dr. Kimberly McGlonn. Let me get her name right. Mm-hmm. Doctor. Be respectful because she worked hard for this. Brand new book available right now called Build It Boldly. You have a signing this Sunday in the city. Let's talk about the book. What was your inspiration behind the book and why did you decide to write it?
I think I was reflecting a lot on what it meant to build the first Black-owned B Corp in North America in the fashion space and the challenges of that, the beauties of that, and how I think for so many of us entrepreneurs, in particular creative entrepreneurs, we don't really have a guide for how to think about building something that shows up in meaningful ways for the communities and the issues that we care about. And so this book was written as a reflection and as an offering for those of us who are trying to figure out how to build something that's timely.
How do you define building it boldly, and what does that mean for entrepreneurs and leaders?
Oh, that's a good question. I was just talking last night with my team about this. I think it means, as we pursue profit, that we don't forget that while we're accepting a model that tells us that profit is the only thing that matters, that we also have an opportunity and obligation to think about the future of the planet and to think about people and the needs of people, particularly those who are most disenfranchised, most poor. And we haven't looked to business leaders to offer that. And so when I think about, the changes, we got to change that.
Can you share some of the key principles or strategies outlined in the book for building a successful business, Dr. McGlonn?
That would mean thinking about paying a living wage, aspiring to pay a living wage to your employees. That would mean thinking about, what does your supply chain look like and where is your supply chain really full of some things that are ultimately toxic and unfair. It means figuring out how are you going to use your business to create a response to a pain point in the place that you live. Whether it's, your parents were abused, your mother was abused, and you give a percent of your profits to a nonprofit that supports that. You care about animal welfare, you give a percent of your profits to that. So I think it's that idea of it can't be that I'm going to race to the top to make as much money as I can and not think about where I come from and what the needs of that community might be.
So I want to take it back. Dr. Kimberly McGlonn, I met her a few years ago when I was hosting a Jack Daniels event that they were doing yearly where they were giving grants to Black-owned businesses. And Kimberly was one of the winners. Mm-hmm. And since then, I've followed her journey on social media, and she is truly like the epitome of Black excellence to me. And she also introduced me to sustainable clothing. I didn't know what that was before, and this is your passion.
It is one of my passions. I think about design broadly. Mm-hmm. Fashion design is part of that. And I think about the ways in which art has the ability to really address the things that we're taught not to see. And for me, that means thinking about the future of our climate and of our planet. And fashion has been so toxic. Number 2 most polluting industry in the world right now is the fashion industry. If you wear something that has spandex, that stretch to it, we love that. I love that. But I also understand that I have to thrift it because that stretch comes from oil. Mm-hmm. And that oil, that petroleum, that plastic, particularly is really harmful, y'all, when we're sweating because it leaches right into our skin, right? Our skin is our largest organ. Mm-hmm. And it leaches right into our organs. So there's evidence now that those microplastics are making their ways into our brains, into our bloods, into our babies. And we're not taught to think about what we're putting on our bodies or how those things are made. So for those of us who are thinking about, I'm anti-slavery. I'm the descendants of the enslaved. But our supply chain is still a result of that exported exploitation. And those are things we just haven't taught to see. So once I learned that, it was, okay, look, I want to build a business that supports particularly women who've come home from prison. That's always been a community that I've cared about. And I want to offer something that doesn't contribute to this environmental crisis that we have. So I built Grant Boulevard, my first company. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Great conversation we're having this morning. Dr. Kimberly Oh, I thought you were going to say something, Roxy.
No, well, we're going to come back and I'll talk.
Dr. Kimberly McGlonn is here. Book available right now, Build It Boldly. Where's the book available at?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Bookshop, Goodreads, all the places we get our books.
And congratulations, because I saw a few of your posts. You're in the top 1% on Amazon right now.
Let's go.
Dr. McGlonn. 8:08 right now. It's the Rise and Grind Morning Show. Phillies Power 99, Rise and Grind Morning Show. Roxy Romeo, Mother Nose, and Mikey Dread. The amazing Dr. Kimberly McGlonn is here. Book, Build It Boldly, available on all platforms right now. Doc, I was watching a few of your speaking engagements, and you talk about zone of genius. Talk about that and explain what that is.
Yeah, I think it's a way I frame what it really means to build an intentional life, which is one where you move with a real recognition that each of us has a unique gift. Some of us have several gifts. And how do we make choices professionally and personally that align with the things that are actually easiest for us? That's the zone right there. Mm-hmm. The zone is when you can say, I recognize what's actually the least work for me. And because I focus in on becoming a master of that, I can take care of myself without having to tax myself by having to say yes to things that really don't feel natural for me.
Right. Another engagement that I was watching that you spoke at, and this really, really inspired me. You said in crisis, there's danger and opportunity. Can you elaborate on that thought process?
Yeah, that actually comes from the Chinese, from Mandarin. In that language, there is no graphic for crisis. There's two characters that come together. One represents danger and one represents opportunity. And as I think about what we're navigating even right now, there is certainly so much danger. And I think that for a lot of us, we're feeling demoralized as we look at the danger that's being unleashed on us. And yet, post a fire, some of the most remarkable gardens in the world, most beautiful natural places, they spring from the opportunity that all of that destruction creates. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something we have to hold on to, especially now. What are we planting with our decisions, our choices, our actions, our relationships, our community building? That is really mindful of what can spring up even after a massive burn.
What does it mean to be a black business owner in Philly, more specifically a black employer, Dr. McGlonn?
I think it means a lot of going it alone, quite frankly. We have a city 40% black. This is a statistic that we can't say enough, that even though the black community in Philadelphia is so large, less than 3% of businesses are owned by black folk. 95% of those entrepreneurs are solo entrepreneurs. That means they employ no one. 95%. So when you look at my team, I employ about 15 people. This is a sad truth. I'm one of the largest black employers in one of the largest cities in North America. And I think that the challenges that come with that are, we're always trying to figure out how are we getting access to capital. You need capital to experiment. And a lot of black businesses can't grow because we can't get the funding to actually just to keep trying.
So what did you do to break through that barrier that other black businesses and other aspiring black business owners need to do?
I write about this in the book. I get, 70% of this new book project is concrete advice. How do you tell your story? How do you, hire people and think about their needs? And how do you raise money? In that first 5 years of business, I raised $500,000 in grants.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. And in the book, I break down the ways in which I pursued, particular very specific grant opportunities, whether it was for $10,000 or $20,000 or $25,000, how I entered into pitch competitions and got better and better about pitching what I believed in, and how I was able to build partnerships between the Philadelphia Department of Commerce and local nonprofits to fund my ideation and my execution. And that's what I think we have to do as a people, is we have to be really strategic about pulling from these kind of, they do exist, these opportunities to do that. But there are other ways. I raise money from friends and family raises, Kickstarter. So in the book, I really break down, here's some traditional pathways to getting capital, and here are some kind of non-traditional pathways to getting the capital that you need to build something beautiful.
Doc, speaking of pitching, everyone has the opportunity to pitch themselves every day with the influx of social media. When it comes to entrepreneurs and it comes to people opening up new businesses, how important do you think social media is?
It's really important. And I think one of the challenges is that, some of these large companies have such huge marketing budgets. It's hard for small entrepreneurs, particularly black entrepreneurs, to compete. So there's something to be said about growing your individual influence first and then leveraging your influence to attract a consumer that is already a part of your natural following. I think there's something to be said about making that upfront investment in growing a digital community and then figuring out how do you convert them into consumers. And I think that the landscape of social media is continues to change. But I think if you know who your target consumer is and what they really need, what their pain point is, if you can stay on top of that, and also not forget that your product has to align with something you really believe in. Mm-hmm. That's the sweet spot. Like, who are you talking to, and how is what you're offering aligned with something that feels authentic and easy for you? Right? Because I know and talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, they burn out because they end up having to sell things they don't really care about.
Right. All right, Dr. Kimberly McGlonn is here. A book, Build It Boldly. We'll continue the conversation in just a few minutes. It's the Rise and Grind Morning Show.
Early in the morning.
Phillies Power 99, Rise and Grind Morning Show. Roxy Romeo, Mother Nose, and Mikey Dredd. 33 degrees is the high on this Friday. Currently 8:33. We have Dr. Kimberly McGlonn here. Book, Build It Boldly. Doc, the book is available everywhere, correct?
Everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Goodreads, and Bookshop, which is where you can go if you support local book owners.
Doc, do you believe the saying, never be the smartest person in the room?
No. Not necessarily. I know it's so fast and so firm. I think that there are times when there are experts. And I think we're in a cultural moment right now that says, like, you know, everybody is equal in terms of what they know. And I think thinking about the word, am I the smartest or are you the smartest, may not be helpful. But when it comes to certain things, we all have individual expertise. And in that way, I think there are moments when we can rise as the person with the most lived or professional experience, and that's valid. I also think that the room is made stronger when you recognize that you're not going to be the smartest at everything.
Right.
Yeah. So I think, yes, I think what you're saying is yes. And I think that there's a way of reframing that so that we don't completely wilt. You know, I think we also come into conditioning, particularly for those of us who are black folk, those of us who are black women, where it's like, I can't be the smartest person in the room.
Right.
That's not going to be accessible to me. And as a default, I reject that. There are things that I know, things that you know, that Roxy knows, Mother knows. We can
bounce off each other.
Yeah.
Dr. McGlonn, I know that you talked previously about some of the passions that you have, you know, supporting for incarcerated women, you know, of course, the sustainable clothing. Where do these passions come from? You know, why do you feel so strongly about these things that you feel like you need to support these causes?
You know, the first day I brought in my last cohort, one of the women, she'd spent 18 years away. It was a low key confrontation. She was like, so what's up? Like you've been all these places, you've done all these things. Why are you here with us? And I told her that, and I talk about this in the book, it's just a way of framing why I got into entrepreneurship in general. I also had a season in my life where, and particularly in my childhood, as a person who some of your listeners, I imagine, were children on their own, you learn what it means to have to really struggle and to be creative about getting your basic needs met. And for a lot of us who have experienced deep poverty, that means considering what society deems as criminal. And I think once I moved into that space of recognizing that there isn't this hierarchy that separates us. Many of us have broken the law. Many of us have a positive relationship with nature, and we're concerned when we see air quality being threatened or water quality being threatened. For me, it really was realizing that there are these significant systemic issues, and my awareness led me to believe that they would only be progressed if I got to the front line. And I saw that as a personal call to action. I will say that my favorite people have been thinkers: James Baldwin, Lorraine Hansberry, Malcolm X, Nina Simone, Angela Davis. Those were the women who stepped in, the figures that filled my head when my parents were in figuring out their own challenges.
Let's talk DEI. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is a hot topic. What do you believe are some misconceptions about Black-owned businesses, and how do you prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion within your organization?
I think one of the major misnomers, miscommunications, lies, is that diversity makes an organization weaker. And what I've learned is that diversity is what propels innovation. If everyone in the room comes to a problem with the same set of biases, the same set of understandings, the same incomplete set of facts, we can't actually progress towards meaningful change. So I think that we've been, and it's not us necessarily, Black-owned business owners who don't understand this, but it's people who actually control the capital that we need, who believe that our showing up, we do make the field more competitive. That is what happens. Like there were many years in this country where competition was stifled because everyone wasn't able to actually get to the starting line. And I think what the progress that we made in the last 50 years to advance integration has meant figuring out how to be inclusive. And I think that for Black business owners, we understand that our offering is made richer when all of our ideas have a chance to flourish. And I think that it's going to be a real interesting death of culture and of intellect, of solutions, if we are not able to rally past this drive to keep our perspective at the margins and ultimately silenced.
What advice would you give to other Black entrepreneurs just starting out?
I would say your community needs you. Your community really, really needs you. It needs your passion. It needs your ideas. It needs your creativity. And it needs you to figure out how you can leverage what you're building to show up in service of that community. And if your business is only focused on how you are individually going to get very wealthy. That's not likely to happen, right? 50% of businesses fail in the first year. Building a brand, they say it takes 10 years to build that thing. But I'm going to tell you this, the journey to build something that's beautiful and lasting, something that reflects your legacy, it's made richer when what you're building contributes to a cause that you personally, truly care about. So I want to encourage Black business owners particularly to think about where is there some pain, some darkness, some struggle in their own lives, and how can they leverage their business to stand in service of that? Because it's going to take building business takes so much fortitude. Mm-hmm. I think of it as like an Olympic sport. It takes so much endurance. You have to get up when you don't want to get up. You got to stay out when you're tired. When that also serves something beyond just the pursuit of a notion of getting rich, you actually can build something that will have the capacity to, to really alleviate some of the suffering that so many of us know so well.
You have me, like, my brain is like going 100 miles an hour right now with everything you're saying. So I want to go back to the DEI thing. I have a statement and then I have a question. So something that I have observed watching you on your journey, and you could correct me if I'm wrong when I say this, but I feel like it is a priority for you to elevate our community, but you have found a way to do it where those that are not part of our community don't feel diminished. They don't feel excluded. You have somehow found a way to blend the two where you're still elevating Black and brown people. You're still putting their voices or our voices and everything in the forefront, but at the same time allowing those that are not part of the community to still feel included, which I think is crazy and insane and amazing because a lot of people don't know how to do that. So that's my statement. Am I right about that?
Yeah, you are right about that. You are right about that. And I think it's because when you get to the heart of what it is that I really try to advance, it's advancing the common good. And when you talk about the common good, you recognize that we don't all move forward until we get to the places where there is the most suffering. And I think the more that we can talk about the need to create a balance of care, the more we have a capacity to bring people who don't look like us into some sense of safety around coming to the front line that serves us all. Mm-hmm. And I think that is because I was a teacher. Mm.
Mm-hmm. So also on the DEI, I know that you are also a part of the Fiddler Club, mm-hmm. right? So Fiddler Club is a members only club. I've been there a couple times, but one thing that I have seen is that you have had a major influence on the type of programming that they offer, which is more DEI type programming. So talk about that experience.
We talked as a team about, like, do we go out and make a statement and say, like, we care about DEI. We're doubling down on our commitments to inclusion. And it was like, no, let's just let the work speak for itself. This month for Black History Month, yeah, we're doing a lot of programming for our members that are around Black folk, but I said, let's focus on Black children specifically. Let's leverage this month to bring in the superintendent. Let's bring in folks who are working in science and designing the future for Black folk, and just have really specific conversations that address the whole. 50% of Philadelphia public school children are Black. If you live in the city, your tax dollars fund the future of Black children. What does that look like? So yes, Filler Club has been another, canvas, and thinking about how do we meaningfully integrate, yes, that space, but also the city at large.
8:43 right now, high of 33 degrees. We will continue the conversation with Dr. Kimberly McGlonn. The book, Build It Boldly, available right now on all platforms, right? Time to go get it, Doc.
Go get it. Get it. Gift it. Treat yourself.
The Rise and Grind Morning Show. Philly's Power 99, Rise and Grind Morning Show. Roxy Romeo, Mother Nose, and Mikey Dredd. Currently 8:51 right now, high of 33 degrees. Dr. Kimberly McGlonn is here. Her book, Build It Boldly, available right now on all platforms. And the amazing Roxy Romeo said, you know what? I'm going to give up my rundown.
That is correct.
To talk to Doc.
Yes, I absolutely adore. Y'all don't understand how much I love this woman. I really do.
We do, because you've been talking about it forever.
I just adore her so much. So, Dr. McGlonn, you talked about it earlier. 50% of businesses fail within the first year. And I know that you are not a stranger to that failure. So when that happened, how did you feel? What are the lessons that you learned? How did you turn it around?
Yeah, no, we closed our first brick and mortar after 5 years. We opened in 2020, ended up closing in 2024. We were at that point the first Black-owned business on Penn's campus. So it was we already knew that we were entering into a terrain that would be challenging. And then Urban Outfitters left that community, Loft left, and it meant that we didn't have what's called co-tenancy, which is businesses need other businesses to survive. Mm-hmm. One reason why they quote unquote fail. And what I learned in that closure, and that last day, it was so hard. It was like having a wake for my baby. Mm-hmm. People came and they knew we were closing, and they were like, love the vision, love you, love the product, love all the things, blah, blah, blah. It was really demoralizing. And it was the first time in my life I felt defeat. I never felt defeat before. I had felt despair, but not defeat. And I took some time, and I really had to pull back a little bit and just nurse myself back into into optimism. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the things I learned from that is that beautiful. Again, it goes back to this, even thinking about the state of what we're experiencing right now in this country. Beautiful things grow in the soil that comes after a fire.
Talk about it.
And it was after that closure that I really had more space to reflect, which produced this book and this distillation of all of those hard-earned learnings. Mm-hmm. And had I not gone through that fire in that way, I wouldn't have had that opportunity to realize that, there's another opportunity yet to persist. The ending of one thing, it also it brings in evolution. And we need new doors require you to leave an old one.
Amen.
And that's just the nature of quote unquote failure.
Doc, you talked about a lot this morning about learning, teaching, experience. Do you mentor people, or how important is mentorship to you?
I mean, actually, it's one of the most beautiful things that I like to do. It's challenging time-wise. I love speaking in public. We have a book signing on Sunday in Jenkintown at the library. For those of you who are in Montgomery County, definitely want to go back and show some love to folks in Cheltenham and Abington. So come out to the library on Sunday at noon, and we can spend a little bit of time together. I'm around the city, and those speaking engagements are oftentimes opportunities for the general public to just ask honest questions about hard things. Yes, related to business, sometimes related to things like shame and loss and grief, which are all a part of building something that's bold. And then we also, this book and the workbook that accompanies it online on my website, they offer some support around what are those hard questions that really take your entrepreneurial journey from basic to elevated. Mm-hmm. And that's so much of that is personal reflection.
So speaking of the book, what do you want readers to take away from it?
I think at the top of the surface of it right now in this moment is that we have to really protect our optimism. Is something that I hope is one big takeaway. Pessimism, Frederick Douglass said, is a tool of the oppressor. And I hope as people read this book and they think about their own entrepreneurial journey, whether they're creatives or they are service providers, that they realize that there's yet something beautiful for each of us on the horizon, even in the most tumultuous times. The abolitionists had to think about that. During the civil rights movement, we had to think about that. We have to believe that something good is ahead. I hope that that's there. Mm-hmm. And I also hope that there's a call to action that our businesses have to stand in the gap of a collapsing, changing federal government. Business leaders have to think about the communities where they work, where they serve, and consumers, us, we have to think about who we're shopping with and from, and to what extent it aligns with what we care about most in terms of the pain that we see in the places where we come from.
Absolutely. Doc, we really appreciate you coming through. A few events going on this weekend, right?
Yeah, a few events. So Black Ivy Thrift, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but it is a vintage thrift store on 36 in Lancaster. We are celebrating our 2nd anniversary as a brick and mortar. So drop by Saturday from 5 to 7. DJ Mall will be there. And we're gonna have a little vibe. So come through, celebrate the civil rights movement and the legacies of Black history this month in particular, Saturday, 5 to 7, 36 in Lancaster. Head over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, get the book. Get the workbook on the site to help you with just thinking these things through.
It is a pleasure. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me, guys.
To have you in the studio. And like I said, when you first got here, the energy when you walked in, it was like dynamite. It was like a firecracker. Like you came in and you're not even a morning person.
I'm so not.
I'm like, bro, what's happening right now? But we really appreciate you. The door is always open when you want to come back through.
Thanks, guys.